Now, I don't really do movie reviews, and this channel is mainly geared towards manga and anime, but I just watched Karate Kid Legends in theaters and I needed to talk about it. I love this series so much. I watched all of Cobra Kai and I enjoyed a lot of the original movies. So I was stoked whenever Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan were teaming up for one movie. But this was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. And watching it in the theater was laughable a majority of the time. This movie made no actual sense watching. And if you haven't watched this movie, now is your time to click away because I will be getting into a lot of spoilers. So the main character, I don't even remember his name. That's how forgettable this movie is. Lee. Lee is his name. Probably the direction and the writing was his biggest enemies. I'm pretty sure Ben Wang is a good actor, but this movie just didn't showcase it. So the story is Ben Wang's character Lee is a student of Jackie Chan's martial art academy in Beijing, China, but for circumstances of his mom getting a new job, they have to move to New York. And his mom is not keen on the idea of his son doing karate because something happened to Ben's older brother in the movie that we don't really know about just yet. But we can assume that he died because of Kung Fu. And as a result, his mom just basically bans Kung Fu and then they move to New York. And while they're in New York, it's a very basic Karate Kid plot where Ben's character Lee falls in love with a pizza girl next door and he does everything he can to get close to her. And one of the things he does is he helps out the father. The father owes some money to some loan sharks and wants to fight because he's an old retired boxer, but he needs to learn some kind of Kung Fu to, win a tournament. So Ben's character, Lee, trains him in Kung Fu, which is actually very interesting and probably the most interested I was in this movie. But then the dad just gets knocked out in the fight through illegal moves. And I don't know how he didn't win that fight on technicalities, but he lost. And on the way to the hospital, Lee is just freezing up the entire time. And the love interest is panicking and looking to Lee to be kind of like the rock that she needs, but he is petrified. And this really upsets the love interest. I looked up her name. Her name is Mia. It really upsets Mia. And when they get to the hospital, they're going into the emergency room and Lee doesn't go in because he's traumatized by his brother's death. And then we get to see his brother's death. It was actually so funny how his brother died. They got into a fight in China because his brother won a tournament and the people that lost wanted to jump him. One guy pulls out a knife and as soon as Lee sees that, he gets so scared and then freezes up. And his brother is in a headlock and asking Lee for help. But because Lee is so scared of the knife, he doesn't. So Lee's brother just looks at Lee while the guy runs up behind him and stabs him. That was just so funny. I was about to crap so bad. But because of this, Lee doesn't go into the hospital room. Mia is mad at him and basically, stops talking to him. And it's at this point that Jackie Chan's character finally makes appearance in the movie. For no reason. He just didn't get any phone calls from Lee, so he just thought something was wrong and just flew to New York to check on him. It's then that Jackie Chan sees the retired boxer in the hospital and he's like, you know what? We can do a tournament and win the prize money to save your restaurant because friends' problems are our problems, which, I like that message. And before he even assesses the situation and looks at who the champion is, he just tells Lee, hey, I'm gonna go find a friend, Ralph Macchio, and I'm gonna bring him to New York and we're gonna train you together. There was no need to bring Ralph Macchio here, and he just goes to California. He goes to Ralph Macchio and says, hey, I'm friends with Miyagi, you're gonna come. And that's literally it. What you see in the trailer is the exact reasoning that gets Ralph Macchio to come to New York, and it makes no sense. And then these two are fighting all the time, talking about which karate is better or which kung fu is better. And honestly, that part of the movie is pretty hysterical. I like these two characters' interactions, but you don't really see anything come about from this training. They're just practicing martial arts at a very high level. But in Cobra Kai, you see the philosophies of each martial arts. You see these characters interacting and teaching lessons to the kids. But there's really none of that. And then they kind of speed run this whole training arc. They do a montage and then they also do very jarring jump cuts. I hate jump cuts so much because they tell a lot of the story by using jump cuts and skipping exposition, which is insane. I don't care about anyone because they don't characterize anyone. And the bully character had, I think, 2 lines of dialogue with the main character. And then the entire rest of the story, he's just silent, just looking to beat him up. And then we get to the tournament. I am stoked for this tournament. I just want to see some martial arts. I just want to see some fighting. But every match is probably, I I think around a minute, and there's 4 matches before the finals. Why? Like, why would you speed up the most important and fun part about the fight? It's beyond me. And in the background, Jackie Chan's character is talking to Lee's mom to try to get him to fight again, and says, hey, what happened to, you know, Lee's brother's tragedy, but you got to let him fight and he's got to do this. And in like 3 sentences of dialogue, the mom agrees for like no reason. It makes no sense why the mom, you know, gets over the fact that her son died from Kung Fu. It is like such bad writing that this happened. And speaking of bad writing, another time I wanted to audibly laugh in the theater was when Lee was talking to the pizza guy about his brother and said, hey, I'm held up a lot because it was my fault that he died. If I acted, my brother would not die. And the dad literally just says, man, that's crazy. Get over it. That's essentially what he says. He basically just said, you can't keep blaming yourself for this because it's going to eat your life, so don't. What kind of writing is this that you get over something so traumatic by not even addressing it and giving any kind of advice or any kind of empathy, really? It was astonishing to see this in the movie. And then the final fight was also crazy. It was like 4 minutes, but it should have been a lot longer. And they even did a time lapse during the final fight. Why would you do a time lapse during the final fight? Like, why are you trying to rush the final fight? You need to let it be fleshed out. Makes no sense. And now his mom is on his side, so she shows up at like the final fight, and the kid is not talking at all. The characterization of this bully character is insanely bad. Like, the only reason why he's fighting is because this guy likes his ex-girlfriend. And other than that, they have not really interacted at all. That's it. At least in Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio was doing a lot of pranks to Johnny, so they had a back and forth kind of hatred of each other. But in this movie, it was really nothing. And the kid doesn't even talk to Lee. He doesn't even talk shit during the final fight. Like, it makes no sense. Something that was pretty interesting was the guy that loaned the money to the pizza guy is the owner of the gym and the master of the bully character. But that guy has no dialogue or really any place in the story past the second half of the movie. And even when the bully character loses, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything. Like, why don't you say anything? Like, why don't you say anything at all during the movie or try to, you know, attack Mr. Han and Ralph Macchio and have a cool, like, you know, sensei fight? That would have been awesome. There was none of that. And then the movie just basically ends with him winning. He gets the girl, of course, and then the pizza guy keeps his shop open and he even opens up a second shop. Then Han goes back to China, and then Ralph Macchio goes back to California. And then they kind of set something up for a sequel, basically saying if Ralph ever needs help, Han and Lee will be there. So there could be a potential sequel, but please do not make a sequel. This movie was so fucking bad. And this was one of my most anticipated movies of 2025, and it was one of the worst movie experiences I ever had. I actually feel bad about paying money to see this movie. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you get something that tastes like shit, but you still have to pay for it. That's what this movie felt like. And I also want to point out that the audience score on Fandango right now is a 91%, and the tomato score is a 60%. The tomato score should be a lot lower, and the audience score should also be a lot lower. And I'm reading these comments, and I swear to God, this audience is just so lobotomized or just fried from TikTok that they don't really have critical thinking anymore. One reviewer said that they thought this movie was very good storyline and characters, went by at a perfect pace. Okay, you are lying to me if you said this movie went by at a good pace. It was the worst pace I've ever seen, and the amount of jump cuts made me like feel like I had whiplash. I could not even focus because I had no idea what the fuck was going on. Some other guy said, awesome return to the franchise. What? What? He also said it was well worth the price of admission. It was not. I can tell you that. People are saying that this was a really good movie. This had the feel of the original Karate Kid. I could see that a little bit because it was a carbon copy of the like first movie, minus the fact that the actor could do martial arts already. And then people said that was better than they expected. Jackie Chan was funny, and that is true. It was really funny. And then he also said that people are saying a lot of bad stuff about the movie, and he said there was nothing wrong. Okay, oh my God, what is wrong with the audience? Please do not believe the audience score. It was so bad. I will say that when the fighting did start, it did pick up, but it's because of the amount of jump cuts that they had, not because of anything good. But people are thinking it's really good and really funny. It was funny, I will say, at times, but people have said, very well done, good acting, theater clapping after it's over. We loved it. I think they clapped because it was over and they could go home. Like, you were no longer a prisoner of this fucking movie. So yeah, Karate Kid's Legend was a cash grab, and the studio just kicked me in the balls and took my money. One of the worst movies I've seen in recent times. And I think it was because I had such a high expectation of this film, and maybe that's my fault. But I will say the end credit was good, and I wish the movie was just the end credit. If I just got the end credit, I would have been happy. Or if we saw, the character in that end credit, in the movie more, I would have also liked it. But let me know what you guys thought about Karate Kid Legends. I hope this review saves at least one person from going to the theaters to watch this abomination. But, if you do, I hope you have a good time and maybe find some silver lining in this movie. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I promise to go back to anime reviews now, and I will see you guys later. Peace.